Hello fellow Gwent players! Today I'm going to review the first set of cards that we got. We got the first half, we got all of Syndicate, all of Northern Realms, and a half of Monsters. So all that's left is, I think, Nilfgaard, Skellig, and Scoia'tael, and the neutrals. I think Scoia'tael's the last of the factions that they are going to reveal, but today I'm going to reveal this first batch because it is a very interesting little batch of cards. And the first card is the Witchfinder. I already talked about this one in my first Once Upon a PYRE video, but I'm gonna obviously review it again for this one. Deploy spawn 3 Syndicate Crowns at the end of your turn. If no enemy unit has bounty, place bounty on the highest power enemy unit. I mean, let's look at the Syndicate Crowns first. So Syndicate Crown, I don't know how to, I'll call it Syndicate Crown because obviously it's a crown. Doomed Zeal, order gain 1 coin and banish self. So it's an artifact, not a unit that it spawns, so it doesn't work with things like the Fallen Knight in Syndicate, so there's no synergies there, but this Syndicate Crown artifact is really strong. Basically what it allows you to do is be on 9 coins 3 times after spending 1 coin, basically. You are, if you have 3 Syndicate Crowns on your side of the field and you have 9 coins, you technically have 12 coins, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. 12 coins with Syndicate. Like, the things you can do with 12 coins, say for example a tunnel drill, oof, that just seems insane. Like, I think tunnel drill is probably the best example for this one. And with added power of, you know, bounty, which we're going to talk about later, and just like removal of tunnel drill, it seems really ridiculous, honestly. Like, you might be scared of Syndicate next season. This card might be a bit too good. As for the Witchfinder, I think her deployability already is kind of insane. That's already what I said. It's a 7-point body with these 3 Syndicate Crowns. These Syndicate Crowns are really, really good, as I already mentioned. But also at the end of your turn, it gives bounty to the highest opponent unit. Now, a lot of people are going to say, but Veil exists, and Defenders exists. But realistically, you're never playing this card without something like Kalkstein or Purify, because you do need Purifies if you're going to be playing the bounty archetype anyway. So I think this card, already on deploy, gives a unit bounty anyway. It gives you 3 coins that allow you to basically stack up on your coins and then destroy like a big unit as well. I think this card is really, really, really scary. And if I were to give it a rating out of 10, this might actually get a, like, 10, honestly. Like, it's a card that really defines an archetype. Like, you will definitely play this card within bounties, I think. It's obviously hard to evaluate these things if you haven't played the meta or anything. But I do think that this card will be incredibly strong. It's not like Syndicate struggles for proactive plays. It struggles for proactive plays that work with coins. Things like Sigismund Dijkstra, you need to have 0 coins in your bank for him to be a good proactive play. You also kind of don't want to establish your spenders early on. This is a 7-point engine that already plays for value if your opponent has played a card. Like, even if your opponent hasn't played a card, he needs to remove this. He needs to remove this card. And other cards like Kalamenge and the Witch Hunter Executioner or Freak Show or Tunnel Drill, or in that case, if you're playing Tunnel Drill, also the, what's his name again? The Cleaver. They're going to stay alive, right? Or maybe the opponent, or maybe we're going into a completely hyper-control meta with this expansion. But yeah, this card is incredibly strong. I would give it a 10 out of 10, but we'll have to see how it actually looks. I mean, by the looks of it right now, I feel like this is a 10 out of 10 card because of these Syndicate Crowns being incredible options for the faction. Then the other card that was revealed is Vigilantes. Whenever bounty is placed on an enemy unit, damage it by 2. Now this card isn't as strong as I first thought. I thought this was actually quite a strong card. It does have some funny combo potential with things like Igor the Hook. I like that about it. Like, pairing this up with Igor the Hook and like Portal could be kind of scary, but I think in general Syndicate likes to play coin givers at their 4 provision slot, like poison, especially with bounty. Poison is very good actually. So I think the Vigilantes might not make the cut, but I can definitely see myself playing this in sort of like a meme bounty strategy where you try and spawn as many of these with like Portal and then go Igor and then just spam like a bunch of bounties, which is kind of funny. So yeah, I do like this card. It probably won't see play competitively, that is. It is a funny little meme card, but I think the 4 provision slots in Syndicate are quite stacked already with things like Tax Collector and Fist Deck and the Poison guys. So yeah, I would probably give this out of 10. I would give it a 3. Yeah, it's definitely below average. It's too low tempo, and it's not that fantastic, to be fair. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Vigilantes. And now we move on to the first card that you guys haven't seen my reaction on, and that is Hysteria. Plays bounty on an enemy unit and damage it by 3. If it already has bounty, double the damage. So this card is kind of hard to evaluate, I would say, because it's fighting for a slot where you have Payday, right? Payday is kind of a more reliable version of this card, but this has a higher ceiling than Payday because it is a very solid crime. It says special here, but it's going to be a crime when the card comes out. So will it see play over Payday is my main question. I don't think it will. I think Payday is still a very good, reliable damage tool. This is more of a value card than Payday because it does, I think you want to always play it for its ability to deal 6 damage at 5 provisions, which is pretty solid, honestly. Like, dealing 6 damage for 5 provisions, but it is quite conditional, and obviously in short rounds it's not going to be that great, and it kind of is a worse Slander as well without the bounty on the unit. I mean, if you're going to go for like full no unit nonsense, this is actually very strong with Slander. You play Slander and you play Hysteria, and you've dealt, I think, 6 damage, and you've gained a maximum of 6 plus 9 coins already with the 4 provision cards while dealing 6 damage, which is pretty nice. It's 9 provisions for 6 damage and 9 coins, which sounds insane on paper, but it is quite situational, I would say. So yeah, Hysteria, if I were to give it a rating, I would probably also put it, I would say it's a 4 or even a 5 out of 10, maybe 5. I think it's hard to evaluate. If a card is hard for me to evaluate, I would probably give it a 5 because it really depends on the meta and how the meta shapes after the expansion. So yeah, Hysteria, not giving coins but dealing some good damage, could be useful. And the last card for Syndicate is Fabian, Hale. Intimidate deploy, place bounty on an enemy unit. If there already was an enemy unit with bounty, gain coins equal to its base power. Now, the thing, this card is it has a very high ceiling, but without the bounty, the thing is, if we're going to assume bounty is going to be good, this card is going to be insane, right? Because you're placing bounty on stuff and then you're getting the coins to kill it later on with an Executioner or with a Borzodi or with the Tunnel Drill. And if that's the case, if bounty is good, this card is really, really solid within that deck. It's an 8 provision card that allows you to get the coins necessary to kill any unit. It is an engine as well. It has Intimidate, which can't be ignored as well, because it's usually going to get, like, I guess, 2 extra points off of that Intimidate. On average, I would say. I mean, it could obviously get more, it could obviously get less, but I think this is a pretty, like, it is a very solid card. I can't say this card is bad. It's impossible to say this card is bad. It fills up your bank, and all you need to do is place bounty. So you are very likely to just play cheap bounty givers. I think obviously if you have the combo potential with Caleb Menge and all your spenders, your damage spenders, this card's insane, but you obviously have to evaluate things in more of outside of the, super perfect scenarios, right? You always have to look at it through, you know, weird scenarios where this card could be awkward. And this card could be awkward sometimes when your opponent just doesn't play a unit and you kind of then just play a 4-point Intimidate engine for 8 provisions. But at the end of the day, I would say this card is still very, very strong. The way it looks, at least right now, seems pretty solid to me. So I would probably give it a solid 6 or 7. I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. I feel like this card is going to definitely see play. And it might actually go really crazy in a lot of situations where it might be a bit frustrating for opponents. It's always very interesting how people spend with bounty as well. And this card is going to give that a little bit more sort of... This is a very high IQ card. You need to time this very well, and you need to have a certain board state for this to be good as well. Or a certain amount of coins in your bank as well. So, yeah, I think this card is pretty solid, though. And then we move on to Northern Realms. Casting Contest. Spell. Boost an allied unit by 5. If it's bronze, reset its order ability and give it Zeal. So this card plays for 5 boost, which isn't that strong if you think about it. You know, 5 boost, you have Swallow Potion, you have Pact, which get more value, but the reset of the order is quite big. Because there's a card coming up later on where this could be quite significant. And at the moment, I think the best targets are the Carrack Marine, which this plays as a 9 with Carrack Marine, but it's a conditional 9, right? So it's not like previous expansions where you had like 8-point cards that don't really play for a condition. For example, like Bear Witcher, that card plays for an 8 pretty much every single time. There's very little situations where it doesn't. Whereas this is more, you know, good design, I think, compared to some of the Way of the Witcher bronzes that they printed, where it can be okay at 5. I mean, it's terrible if you're going to play it for 5, but usually you're going to get at least, I would say, in the worst case scenario, you're getting like 7 points out of this. And that's still pretty okay, I would say. At 5, 7, it's kind of like below average, but if you use it on Revenants, if you use it on... as I said, the Carrack Marine, then there's the other bronze coming up. It could be quite solid for sure. So yeah, I do like the design of it though. I definitely really like this design on the card. And now we move on to Gerhart of Hale. Human Mage, Zeal, Patience, order, create, and play a 4-provision spell. Now Patience is this new keyword that Northern Realms has gotten. Patience basically means that if you wait a turn, the sort of value that's in the brackets, in this case the 4 provisions, increases, right? So you play this and you don't click the order ability, you get a 5-provision spell from it. You don't click it again, you get a 6. You don't click it again, you get a 7, and so on and so forth. And I think this card is very similar to the old Summoning Circle. Summoning Circle, if some of you don't remember, was an artifact that basically said every counter, like every turn, it gained a charge. And for every charge it had, you could play a unit with that provision cost or lower. This isn't as flexible as the Summoning Circle was. I'm not sure if Summoning Circle was exact or if it was lower as well. But Gerhart of Hale can create a lot of good spells. And I'm just going to look for all the spells. I mean, we have the new spell as well. There might be some neutral spells added to the game as well, and some spells in Squirtle. Who knows? But we can look at the current pool of spells and look what he can pull. So here we have the card pool of spells. And if you think about it, the card already plays for a 13 at 11 provisions because of Pact. Pact obviously being a 4-provision card, playing for 6 points, and they also said Rune Word is going to get reworked into a 6-provision card. I trust me on that. They did say they were going to rework some cards in Northern Realms. Rune Word is one of them. Pact, I mean, even if it wasn't changed, it would still be a create mechanic, so you have the choice of 3. So the worst choice probably will be 5 because Will-o'-the-Wisp exists, and Artifact Compression and Forbidden Magic can feel awkward at times. So I think the 5 might actually be the worst of these. At 7 though, Necromancy is really, really scary. There is some obviously crazy combo potential of spawning multiple engines in one turn. There's Royal Guards, Centurion Royal Guards. You can get an extra Royal Guard with the Necromancy, which is really, really sick. Then you also have, there's just engines. Just Northern Realms has some crazy good engines that you can just replay. Things like Revenants as well, if you just want to replay a Revenant. And you can play the Revenant and then play another card during the same turn that you use the Order ability. That is the main thing about this card, the Gerhart, that makes it so scary. And obviously, the further up we go, the more scary it gets. At 8, we have 4 spells. Now, the problem with the 8, I think, is you usually want Alzur's Double Cross, but you're not always going to get it. But Last Wish and Double Cross could be 2 options where it could be kind of alright, but Last Wish is very unreliable and it is kind of a bad card. I'm not sure if he can get Invo. Apparently he can get Invo. So at 9, you have some pretty sick cards. You have Triangle within a Triangle, which plays for an 11 with him already, if he stays alive, obviously. Then you have Invo for control. Obviously, Marigold's Hailstorm and Curse of Corruption can be awkward at times, especially with Northern Realms. But I do think that those are definitely solid choices. Ragnarok at 10, I don't think you're going to do this because spawning a Cataclysm at for 4 turns after waiting 5 turns already for this isn't really worth it. But once you get to 12, I mean, Uma and Scorch, yeah, sure, that's funny and all, but I think at 12 and 13, that's where things obviously start to get scary. That's where, you can create some crazy combos. You can go Oneiromancy, Ansays, Varaxis during the same turn with the Shield Wall. Like, that's nuts. Like, that is just insane value on your board and on the table immediately. Like, it is crazy. So, I do wonder what other spells they are going to print, but I think the go-to for a lot of players might just be the 4 provision spell in case they are playing against control decks, or 7. I think 7 is probably the golden spot for this card, or even 8. I think 8 or 7 are 2 of the better ones. Obviously, the Oneiromancy is for like high-tier meme combos, which yeah, boy is gonna definitely try to pull off, but it's a long shot, right? You need to be able to play 9 cards and wait 9 turns for you to actually get the Oneiromancy. So it requires a lot of patience, but if you then can get this crazy little combo with some neutrals and some like you could play like Alzur. Oh, that would be so crazy. You play the Gerhard and then you play Alzur into Oneiromancy. Like that, it just sounds stupendously dumb, but it is definitely something I would be down to try. In general, I think this card is absolutely insane. It allows for so many cool interaction. It allows for so many just cool combos if it stays alive, obviously. But the problem is that it creates also this very binary sort of interaction, is that if your opponent doesn't have the answer for this card might just win you the game single-handedly. And the opponent will want an answer for this 100% of the time. So, yeah, Gerhart, I see a lot of people just playing this as a 13 a lot of times, because a 13 for 11 just seems solid. Also, it's a 7-point body, so it doesn't have to boost itself a lot of times. It can just boost some other unit. And, yeah, I mean, just a 13 for 11. I mean, this card's a 10 out of 10. There's no denying that this card isn't completely off the wall crazy and oh so good at the same time. Like, it allows for competitive and meme potential, which is really cool. I like the balance in that sort of sense. So a lot of meme Northern Realms deck will 100% play this card because it just allows for so many memes to be played with it. Then we have the Banard Student. Patience order melee damage an enemy unit by 0. So after 1 turn, you get 1 damage off of this. After 2 turns, you get 2 damage, and etc, etc. So this is where the casting contest comes into play, and CDPR did confirm that this remains, like the value of the patience remains equal in the graveyard. So, say for example you got this to 4 or 5, you can then go Necromancy and, you know, you have to obviously wait a turn, but you can go Necromancy and just replay this. You can go Gerhart into Necromancy into a 9 point, a 4 deal 5 or 4 deal 4 Banard student. I think this as a 4P card is incredibly strong, by the way. If the opponent doesn't answer this, he's in a lot of trouble, like a lot of trouble. You literally only need 4 on this. You need 4 turns of patience for this to actually be worth it. And I mean, it seems like the opponent's going to kill it in the next turn, you can just use the melee, right? I mean, the reason this card is very limited into how hard it can pop off, because it's roll locked, it's an order, it's patience, but when the card goes off, the card will go off, and it will be very likely to be your second or third card to play that turn. So really, really strong addition to Northern Realms. I would say for a 4 provision card, this can definitely see a lot of play, because like a lot of other engines that might boost themselves, this is an engine that gains damage value, and damage value is always better than boost, no matter what. But it is slow, and that's what makes the card kind of bad in a certain sensitive way. It has potential, I would say. It's a good 4-drop. Definitely a good 4 provision card to put in your deck. Helps you sort of polarize it, obviously. And it's just a solid little ability, I think. And yeah, I think this card, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. I think the card is solid enough to be above average. A lot of people saying that this is bad, but like it's the same thing with cards that, you know, play for 4 and then boost themselves by 1 whenever something happens. The thing is, obviously, they get harder to kill as time goes on, but you have Amphibious Assault for this. You also have ways to protect this within Northern Realms, with shields, with armor, with the Royal Guards, and all that stuff. So I think it fits well into the faction, and I'm really looking forward to trying some shenanigans with this one for sure. And the last Northern Realms card is Istrid, Human Mage, Zeal Patient, so he has Zeal already. Order draw 1 card, then shuffle back 1 card. Whenever you draw a unit, boost it by 1. If it's not a unit, boost self by 1 instead. So this is not necessarily that great for patience, honestly. I would say the patience in this one doesn't really make that much sense, because the longer the round goes, the smaller your hand becomes. So something like patience 3 or 4 isn't really worth it. I think what's really worth it is that second ability of whenever you draw a unit, you boost it by 1. And if it's not a unit, you boost self by 1. But this is some really cool synergy with cards like Erland, really cool with the Griffin Mentor, the Griffin Witcher Mentor. Also Snowdrop, really, really solid with this one for sure, because Snowdrop just gets really good value with Istrid. Because just also Pincer Maneuver works with this. There's so many good like abilities with this that just work, right? I feel like there's a lot of cool like synergies with it. Like it seems very interesting on paper, but I think in the grand scheme of things, this card cannot be competitive. It is kind of like a meme card, one would say. Yeah, because it's just, you know, it has, you know, the synergies with certain cards that aren't really that competitive anyway. So why could... I mean, this card could not make those other cards competitive, I would say. So, yeah, Istrid, definitely a funny card. Definitely a card I will try, because it seems like it has some funny potential. And, yeah, I would probably give it a 2 out of 10, though. It's probably the worst card that they've revealed so far, I think. Definitely the least sort of potential, I think, out of all the cards that they've revealed. And yeah, I don't mind the card. It's just not the greatest, I think. It's kind of bad, actually. But obviously, meme cards, my territory, my type of card. So yeah, I do like it in that sense. And now we have the monster card. We got one more card after this before the video ends. But for the moment, let's look at this. She Who Knows. Sabbath. At the end of round, Give resilience to the highest base power unit on your side of the battlefield. So the way Sabbath works is that one of your rows has to have 25 plus power on it. So you are forced to kind of row stack some big boys, and then it's quite easy with monsters to get 25 points on a row. So this card is really crazy if you think about it. In a Thrive deck, where obviously big boys are key, this is incredibly scary because Thrive always had that, like, Thrive has the problem of it has good bleed potential, and its purpose is always to bleed, but the bleed is always very slow at the start, right? Because you gotta set up your Thrive engines, you gotta, you know, get the larvas out, and then you gotta start playing your big boys. And by the time you've done that, your opponent might have already established some engines that got value. With this card, though, if you actually get like a big carryover card, I'm not saying Wyvern, because Wyvern does not work with this. Also, I think Old Spear Tip might actually see play again because of this card, because it is the highest base strength unit in monsters. Like, you just have 12 points of carryover. Like, this is crazy. With a 10 base as well. Like, this itself can be giving itself the resilience. So, it's really nuts. On red coin. On red coin, this card is absurd. Like, it's insane how good this card is on red coin. Because with Thrive, at some point, you are going to get ahead of your opponent. And your opponent sometimes just passes. You know, because, you know, you're starting to slam those big boy cards. And nowadays, if you did that, alright, you just slam another big boy, win the round, and then you bleed him in round 2. Now, he has to be careful that the She Who Knows doesn't keep you ahead, but at 10 power, it's very likely to keep you ahead. So now you play that She Who Knows, and you might just have those 10 extra points for the next round, and the opponent has to play catch-up, basically. And it also still might remain on your side of the field for round 3. And that is also something. A lot of people will think about this card being good in round 1. This card is insane in round 2. In round 2, this card is amazing. Like, the opponent will be scared to bleed you because of this card. It's actually kind of ridiculous. Because, like, the moment your opponent plays something, you're starting to get those 25 points, right? You're slowly starting to get 25 points. You obviously can't play this on a dry pass. It would be a huge throw to play this on a dry pass because you need the Sabbath enabled. So, I do like the fact that it has that Sabbath tag. Obviously, it has to have some sort of condition. But I think this card might put, you know, Thrive back on the map. Or just Monster Big Boys. Because Monster Big Boys is a deck that lacks control. So, the way, you know, it used to work back then, it just had more points than other decks. Now with the whole, you know, power creep and such, and engines being more powerful than ever, Monster Thrive will, you know, just only will work in lower ranks, like really low ranks to like rank 7 or so. After that, you know, you have to actually build some different decks. But She Who Knows is sort of like this game changer. It changes the game and the dynamic of the game of how Thrive works in a really interesting way that it doesn't seem too busted, but I'm not sure how busted or unbusted this actually is. So I do like this card. I think this could be a very problematic card, but at the same time it could also be underwhelming at best. So yeah, looking forward to how this actually plays out. Definitely going to try this one out. This is going to be a very interesting one to see how it works in the meta and how it's going to shape the meta, because this card will definitely shape the meta for sure. And yeah, definitely looking forward to playing that one. As for rating, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. It's very good. Like a solid like card that just can give you carryover as a late game finisher always seems pretty solid. So you do have to sort of set up your deck for it, though. That's always, you know, also part of it. So you're not actually allowed to play Wyvern with this card, which is also an aspect that I find quite interesting to the deck building cost that it that comes with this. So yeah, very looking forward to this one. I wouldn't give this a 10 out of 10, but I'm not saying this card's bad. This card is going to be, it could be another Vi. Could also just be another, you know, what's it called? Elder Bear, where, no, not Elder Bear, what's the, Dire Bear, yeah, Dire Bear, where I thought it was going to be a 10 out of 10, but, you know, it turned out to be garbage. So yeah, I think, yeah, She Who Knows is a fine little card. And here we have the last card, Witch Apprentice. Sabbath at the end of your turn, boost self by 2. Now this card is both, yeah, this card's insane, isn't it? I was thinking about, like, its downsides being that it doesn't proc Thrive, but you're not playing this in Thrive decks, you're playing this in Vi decks. Vi loves this card. Like, Vi doesn't have that many 4 provision cards that it can play. Like, you're cutting Forktail out of that deck and you're playing Witch Apprentice, because this is a major buff to Vi. This card is insane with Vi. I hope they rework Vi somehow, but if Vi stays the same, this card will be insane with that deck. Like, because it's procced after, like, turn 4 with Vi. If you play everything alright, or, like, have at least 2 Vi's in your hand, like, that's just crazy, right? It's a 4... Oh my god, that's so good. Dude, this card is a 10 out of 10. This fits in so many monster decks. I'm not sure if it fits into Kelly, because I'm not sure if it needs to be played on the same row. Actually, no, this is kind of bad in Kelly. I think the Wild Hunt Hound is better off in Kelly, but a lot of decks will play this card. Consume decks will love this card. Genuinely, Consume decks, they don't really mind row stacking. I mean, yeah, Yrden is a thing, and Yrden might become a thing with this Sabbath tag, because these monster cards are looking crazy. That first one was crazy, and this one's maybe, this is a 10 out of 10. Yeah, I think I've already said it, but holy moly. I'm sorry I couldn't get a better art of this. This came out very recently when I filmed it. But yeah, this card is super scary. Super scary good. Like, probably, like, the most impactful card out of this set. Because it's a 4 provision card. Like, it's never bad. It never is bad to just play this in round 1. Because it's basically a 4 provision beast for 3 less provisions. Like, you're just cutting beast at that point and playing 2 of this. I mean, obviously, Sabbath is a condition that needs to be met. So, I would say the average value of this card is 8. But for 4 provision, that's already doubling up on your provision cost. Because you play this rather late, you can't obviously play this. It's kind of like an adrenaline. It's kind of like you have to sort of make your own adrenaline, which I kind of like about this tag. This is a very cool keyword, Sabbath. But yeah, I think this card is very, very good. Very, very scary as well. Like, you can also just play it as a 4 to proc Thrive and then play something big that the opponent might not be able to answer, because if he doesn't answer your Thrives, he's not going to answer this card. And then if he answers this card, your Thrives live, right? So, yeah, this card is insane. This card is probably, like, yeah, it's arguably the most auto-include card out of the set so far. Witch Hunters, the bounty is, it's its archetype. Then we have the Northern Realms. I guess Gerhart is also kind of auto-includey, but it's no Witch Apprentice. This card is going to be in pretty much every monster deck, I would assume. Apart from Kelly, this fits into quite literally everything. So, yeah, really, really scary card. And yeah, that was the first half of revealed cards. I will review the, last batch sort of right before the expansion comes out, because we still got some days of reveals. I think I will do the reveals at Gwent Masters as well, so I will probably upload the video before Gwent Masters, and then during Gwent Masters I will be on Bushy's stream, so if you want to check that out, feel free to do so. I will be with some other Gwent streamers. We're just going to hang out, chill, and talk about Gwent and just some other stuff maybe. So if you want to do that, make sure to follow Busher. You probably are already following him. So yeah, I'll be on a stream for Gwent Master with some other content creators like Spiro, Spessy is gonna be there as well. So yeah, we're gonna check out the revealed cards, and I think I'm gonna upload the next batch of revealed cards before that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little reveal review. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe for more Gwent content, and I'll see you soon.